The candle on the table flickered, casting a shadow across David's smiling face. He looked perfect. The perfect husband. The perfect father. He raised his crystal flute, cleared his throat, and looked me right in the eye. He toasted to us, to 10 incredible years, and to our 3 beautiful babies who made it all worth it. I didn't pick up my glass. My hands were trembling under the tablecloth, clutching the cold, sharp edges of 3 white envelopes. I knew the moment I pulled them out, the man sitting across from me, the man who had coached every soccer game, bandaged every scraped knee, and kissed every forehead goodnight, would cease to exist. I slid them across the table. The sound of the paper scratching against the linen was the loudest thing in the room. I told him, "Before we celebrate 10 years of marriage, David, I think you should open these." He laughed nervously. He asked if they were gift certificates. I looked him dead in the eye and said, "They're DNA test results. One for Emma, one for Aiden, one for Sophia. And David, none of them are yours." I watched the life drain out of his eyes. In 3 seconds, I erased 10 years of his history. I'm going to tell you exactly how I ruined my life and his. If you appreciate raw honesty, even when it's ugly, and even when I'm the villain, hit that subscribe button right now, because trust me, you are not going to believe how this ends. To understand why I dropped a nuclear bomb on my anniversary dinner, you have to go back 12 years. I was 25, reckless and terrified of being bored. I had 2 men in my orbit. There was David. He was the safe choice. He had a 401k, a 5-year plan, and he opened doors for me. He was the guy you marry. Then there was Ryan. Ryan was the guy you ruin your life for. We had this toxic, magnetic, on-again, off-again thing that felt like an addiction. When the stick turned pink 3 months into dating David, I felt like the floor had dropped out under me. I sat on the cold tile of my bathroom floor, doing the math. The dates were messy. I'd been exclusive with David, but I'd had a goodbye night with Ryan that I never mentioned. It was a coin toss. Heads, it's the stable guy who wants a family. Tails, it's the bad boy who lives out of his car. I told Ryan first. He looked at me, lit a cigarette, wished me luck, and then he disappeared. When I told David, he cried, not scared tears, happy tears. He proposed right there in the kitchen. He promised to take care of us forever. And in that moment, I made a choice. I chose the life I wanted, not the truth I owed him. I told myself that biology was just a technicality. Then came Emma. She was born screaming, with a full head of thick, black curls and dark olive skin. David is blonde, blue-eyed, pale as a ghost. His family made jokes on the delivery room. "Must be the milkman." But David just held her tighter. He told me she was perfect. He said, "Love is thicker than blood." I clung to that phrase like a life raft. I convinced myself I was protecting him. Why hurt him with a maybe when I could give him a definitive yes? 2 years later, I got sloppy. The suburban life was suffocating me. When Ryan texted me out of the blue, I didn't block him. I met him. Just once. Just for closure. 9 months later, the twins arrived. Aiden and Sophia. If Emma was a question mark, the twins were a bold-faced statement. They looked nothing like David. And I mean nothing. They were carbon copies of Ryan. By now, the whispers in our social circle were getting louder. I'd see people at church looking from David to the kids, doing the mental genetics calculation and coming up short. But David, he put on blinders. He doubled down. He coached their t-ball teams. He worked overtime to pay for their private school. He was super dad. I stood in front of the mirror one night watching him brush Aiden's teeth. Aiden looked up at him and smiled, and for a split second, the guilt hit me so hard I almost threw up. I was letting this man pour his heart, soul, and bank account into children who were strangers to his bloodline. I told myself, it doesn't matter. He's their father because he acts like his father. Telling him now would just be cruel. I built a fortress out of those lies. I thought the walls were thick enough to hold forever. But here's the thing about walls built on lies. They don't need a wrecking ball to come down. Sometimes all they need is a tiny hairline fracture. And mine started with a single comment at a family reunion that I couldn't laugh off. Little did I know, that one comment was the beginning of the end.
The fracture happened 2 years ago at a family reunion. It was David's grandmother's 90th birthday, and everyone was there. Cousins, uncles, people we hadn't seen in years. David's aunt, a woman named Beverly who'd been a nurse for 30 years, cornered me by the punch bowl. She didn't smile. She just leaned in close, lowered her voice, and asked me a question that made my blood run cold. She said, "Honey, I've worked in genetics for 3 decades. Those kids don't have a single O'Sullivan trait. Has David ever done a paternity test?" I felt like I couldn't breathe. I tried to laugh it off. I made some joke about recessive genes and how nature is mysterious. But Beverly didn't laugh. She just looked at me with this pitying, knowing look, and then I saw it. David's mother was watching us. She was looking at the twins, then back at David, and for the first time, I saw suspicion in her eyes. That was the moment the clock started ticking. I knew the lie was becoming visible to other people. It wasn't just my secret anymore. It was a public spectacle waiting to happen. But the universe wasn't done with me yet. 18 months ago, the past didn't just knock on the door, it kicked it down. Ryan moved back to town. And he wasn't the broke, desperate guy who left me pregnant. He was successful now. He had money, and apparently he had a calculator because he'd done the math. He showed up at my office one Tuesday. I walked out to the parking lot, and there he was, leaning against a sleek black car. He didn't even say hello. He just looked at me and asked if the kids were his. I denied it. I screamed at him. I told him if he came near my family, I'd call the police. I played the role of the outraged mother perfectly. But Ryan didn't flinch. He just told me that he'd seen photos on social media. He said he saw his own face in the twins. Specifically, he said, "You can't run from biology, Michelle." I told him I wasn't running. I told him David was their father because David stayed. I told him being a father is about who raises you, not whose DNA you have. Ryan just laughed. He asked me if David knew that, or if David just thought he was their father. That question haunted me. Because Ryan didn't go away. He started showing up at the local park during soccer practice. He never approached the kids. He just stood by the fence, watching them. Watching the twins run, watching David cheer for them. It was psychological warfare. I lived in constant terror that he would walk up to David and blow my entire world apart. But honestly, the external threats, Ryan, the aunt, I could handle those. I could fight those. What broke me was what happened inside my own house. It was a year ago. Emma, my oldest, came home from school in tears. She was in 3rd grade, and they were doing a unit on family traits. They had to map out eye color, hair texture, things like that. She threw her backpack on the floor and sobbed. She said she didn't fit. She said the other kids asked if she was adopted because she didn't have a single trait from her dad. Not one. Her teacher even commented on how unique her genetic expression was. David, being the saint that he is, tried to fix it. He hugged her and told her she got all her mommy's beautiful genes and that it happens sometimes. He told her she was special. But that night, after he tucked her in, Emma came to my bedroom door. She looked so small. She asked me point blank, "Mom, is Dad really my dad?" In that moment, I had a choice. I could have sat her down. I could have started the hard conversation. But I was a coward. I looked my 9-year-old daughter in the eye and I lied to her. I told her, "Of course he is, sweetheart. Don't let anyone tell you different." She believed me. Because why would her mother lie? And that's when I realized the deception wasn't just hurting David anymore. It was twisting my children's reality. I was gaslighting my own daughter. I remember sitting on the edge of her bed after she fell asleep, feeling like I was drowning. I knew this wasn't just going to go away. Eventually, someone would demand the truth, and when they did, my entire life, the house, the reputation, the family dinners would collapse. Unless I controlled when and how it happened. And then came the final straw, the thing that forced my hand. David got into Ancestry. He started watching those shows about finding lost relatives. One night at dinner, he was so excited. He told me he'd ordered 23andMe kits for the whole family. He said, "It would be fun to see where we all came from." My heart stopped. I panicked. When the kits arrived in the mail a few days later, I accidentally threw them out with the recycling. I told him I thought they were junk mail. He believed me, of course, but then he ordered more. I realized I was out of time. I couldn't keep throwing away DNA kits. I couldn't keep Ryan at the fence forever. I couldn't keep lying to Emma every time she looked in a mirror. So I made a decision. If this was all going to come out anyway, I was going to control the narrative. I was going to be the one to tell him. But not before I made him see exactly how much he'd given to children that weren't his. I wanted him to understand the depth of his love before I showed him the depth of my betrayal. I decided I needed proof, real proof, not just my memories of a night with Ryan, but hard science. I needed to know for sure before I burned my life down. I became a spy in my own home. That's what guilt does to you. It turns your bathroom into a crime scene and your husband into a target. I knew I couldn't use the kits David ordered. I couldn't risk him seeing the email notifications. I had to do this off the books. I waited until bath time on a Tuesday. I remember my hands were shaking so bad I almost dropped the shampoo bottle. While the kids were splashing around, laughing, playing with their rubber ducks, I was carefully plucking hair strands from their heads. I told them I was checking for ticks because of the tall grass at the park. Aiden even thanked me. He thanked me for taking care of him, while I was collecting evidence to prove his father wasn't his father. For David, it was easier, and somehow crueler. I took his toothbrush, the one he used every morning and every night, the one sitting in the cup right next to mine. I packed everything into 3 separate envelopes. I sent them to 3 different labs under a fake name. I needed to be absolutely certain. I needed 23andMe, Ancestry, and a private paternity lab to all tell me the same thing. Then came the waiting. 2 weeks of absolute torture. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, I was snapping at everyone. If the kids chewed too loudly, I yelled. If David asked me how my day was, I felt like screaming. I was living in a pressure cooker, waiting for the lid to blow off. We had a close call about a week in. I'd left a receipt from one of the private labs in my jacket pocket, a rookie mistake. David was doing laundry, trying to be helpful. He walked into the kitchen holding the slip of paper. He looked confused. He asked me what genomic diagnostics was and why I'd spent $300 there. My heart hammered against my ribs. I thought, this is it. It's over.
But the lie came out of my mouth before I could even think about it. I told him it was for my mom. I told him she was worried about Alzheimer's markers and didn't want my dad to know yet, so she used my card. And David? He just nodded. He didn't ask for proof. He didn't check my mom's story. He just said, "Oh, wow. I hope she's okay. Let me know if she needs anything." He believed me instantly because why wouldn't he? He trusted me completely. And honestly, that trust made me hate him a little bit. It felt like a weakness. I wanted him to catch me. I wanted him to scream at me. Being trusted when you're doing something despicable is a special kind of hell. The results arrived via email on a Friday afternoon. I was sitting in my car in the grocery store parking lot. I remember it was raining. I opened the first attachment. Probability of paternity, 0.0%. I opened the second. Probability of paternity, 0.0%. I opened the third. Probability of paternity, 0.0%. I stared at the screen until my phone dimmed. I expected to feel relief. At least I finally knew the truth, but I didn't feel relief. I felt rage. I was angry at myself, sure, but I was irrationally angry at David for being so oblivious. I was angry at Ryan for existing. I was angry at the universe for not letting me get away with it. It was real now. It wasn't a fear anymore. It was a fact. David was a biological stranger to the children he worshipped. That's when the plan solidified in my mind. I could have told him quietly. I could have done it in therapy. But I was spiraling. I decided I'd tell him on our 10th anniversary. I know how that sounds. It sounds monstrous, but in my twisted logic, I wanted him to remember this date for the rest of his life. I wanted to ruin the perfect milestone because our entire marriage was a lie anyway. Why celebrate a fake anniversary? I wanted to burn it down on the exact day we built it. I booked the restaurant, the same Italian place where he proposed. I had the PDF results professionally printed on heavy cardstock. I put them in those thick, expensive envelopes. I rehearsed what I'd say 100 times in the mirror. But the universe loves to test you right before you jump. 3 days before the dinner, the twins were playing hide-and-seek in my bedroom. I walked in and froze. Aiden was holding one of the sealed envelopes. He'd found it in the back of my closet. He looked up at me with those big, dark eyes, Ryan's eyes, and asked, "What's this, Mommy? It has my name on it." I snatched it out of his hand so fast I nearly gave him a paper cut. My heart was in my throat. I told him it was adult paperwork, boring stuff. He frowned and said, "But it says Aiden. Is it a surprise?" I looked at him and said, "Yes, baby. It's for your college fund. We'll talk about it when you're older." He smiled and ran off. I stood there clutching that envelope, shaking. I looked at the calendar. 3 days. I just had to hold it together for 3 more days.
The night before our anniversary, David came home early. He looked like a kid on Christmas. He told me he had a surprise. He'd saved up for months, secretly, on the side, to buy me a diamond necklace. He pulled out a velvet box and showed it to me. It was stunning. He told me he wanted to renew our vows. He said he wanted to make me feel cherished. He said, "I know you've been stressed lately, Shelley. I want you to know I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." I looked at the diamonds. I looked at his earnest, loving face, and all I could think was, tomorrow, I'm going to destroy you. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, and he was standing at the bottom with his arms open, waiting to catch me. But I wasn't going to jump. I was going to throw a boulder. The morning of the anniversary, I woke up before the alarm. The house was quiet. I laid there, listening to David breathe next to me, a steady, rhythmic sound I'd heard for 10 years. Tonight, he wouldn't be sleeping here. I knew that with absolute certainty.
I got up and went through the motions. I made pancakes, I packed lunches, I braided Emma's hair. I was watching myself from the outside, like a character in a movie I didn't want to be in. Every interaction felt final. When I tied Aiden's shoe, I wondered if it was the last time I'd ever do it. When Sophia kissed my cheek, I wondered if she'd ever want to kiss me again. I spent the afternoon preparing. I didn't just get ready for dinner, I got ready for war. I went to the bank and withdrew $2,000 in cash just in case he locked the accounts immediately. I packed a go bag and hid it in the trunk of my car. Clothes, toiletries, the kids' birth certificates. I was assuming the worst, that he'd throw me out instantly. I put on the dress David loved, a deep blue silk that matched the necklace he'd shown me. I did my makeup carefully, hiding the dark circles under my eyes. If I was going to detonate a bomb, I was going to look untouchable doing it. It was armor. David came home at 5. He looked handsome in his suit. He kissed me and said, "Ready for the best night of our lives?" I almost choked. "Ready," I lied. We drove to the restaurant in silence. Or maybe we talked. I don't remember. My ears were ringing. All I could feel was the weight of those 3 envelopes in my purse. They felt heavy, like lead bricks. When we walked into the restaurant, the hostess smiled and led us to the private corner booth I'd requested. It was secluded, romantic, perfect for a murder or a confession. We sat down. David ordered champagne. He was beaming. He couldn't stop smiling. He reached across the table and took my hand. His palm was warm. Mine was ice cold. "Shelley," he said softly, "you look beautiful." I pulled my hand away, pretending to reach for my napkin. I couldn't handle his touch, not when I knew what was coming. The waiter poured the champagne. We watched the bubbles rise. 10 years, David said, shaking his head. "Remember our wedding day? It rained so hard." "I remember," I said. My voice sounded hollow. "Best decision I ever made. Marrying you. Building this family. You've given me everything, Michelle. 3 beautiful children, a home, a life I never dreamed I'd have." He reached into his pocket and pulled out the velvet box again. He opened it. The diamond necklace sparkled in the candlelight. "Turn around. Let me put it on you." I turned. I felt his fingers brush against my neck as he clasped the necklace. The cold metal settled against my skin. It felt like a noose. "There," he whispered. "You're the love of my life, Michelle." This was the moment. The exit ramp. I could have stopped. I could have said thank you and buried the envelopes deep in my purse. I could have chosen mercy. I could have decided to carry the lie to my grave to protect his happiness. But I didn't. I turned back around and looked at him. The guilt, the fear, the exhaustion, it all hardened into something cold and sharp. I needed to cut the cord. I needed to end the charade. "I have something for you, too," I said. David's face lit up. "Really? You didn't have to get me anything." "It's not a gift, David." My voice didn't shake. "It's the truth." I reached into my purse. My fingers brushed the smooth paper of the envelopes. I pulled them out, one by one. Emma, Aiden, Sophia. I laid them on the white tablecloth, right next to his champagne glass. David looked at them, confused. He squinted in the dim light. "What's this?" he asked. "Bank accounts? Savings bonds?" "Open them," I said. He laughed a little, a nervous chuckle. "Is this a joke? Some kind of anniversary scavenger hunt?" "Just open them, David." He looked at me. The smile started to fade. He saw something in my eyes, maybe the deadness, maybe the resolve that scared him. He reached for the first envelope, the one with Emma's name on it. His hands were shaking slightly as he tore the seal. The sound of the paper ripping was sharp, violent. He pulled out the single sheet of paper, he adjusted his tie, he started to read. I watched him. I watched his eyes scan the header, genomic diagnostics. I watched him read the name, Subject, Emma O'Sullivan. I watched him read the conclusion. Probability of paternity, 0.0%. He froze. He read it again, then a third time. He looked up at me, his brow furrowed. I don't understand. Read it, I said. It says 0%, he whispered. Shelley, this says 0%. It means Emma isn't yours, I said. That's not possible, he said quickly. This is wrong. The lab is wrong. Labs make mistakes. Open the other two, I said. He stared at me. Michelle, what are you doing? Open them. He grabbed the second envelope, then the third. He ripped them open frantically now, paper flying. He laid the 3 sheets out side by side. 0%, 0%, 0%. The silence that followed was deafening. The restaurant noise seemed to fade away. It was just us and the 3 pieces of paper that proved his life was a fiction. He dropped his hands to the table. His face went completely white. He looked like he'd been shot. None of them? He choked out. His voice broke. None of them, I said. He sat there for a long time, just staring at the papers. Then he looked up at me. His eyes were wide, filled with horror I'll never forget. How long? He asked. How long have you known? I took a breath. I said, always.
Always, he repeated. The word hung in the air like smoke. Always? You've known for 10 years that I've been raising another man's children? I took a sip of water. My throat was dry. You've been happy, David. They've been happy. Does it really matter? That was the wrong thing to say. David slammed his hand on the table. The silverware clattered. Does it matter? I've spent 10 years of my life, everything I've done, every sacrifice, every moment. You love them, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. You said it yourself. Love is thicker than blood. That's when I thought they were mine, he shouted. That's when I thought you hadn't lied to me for a decade. He stood up so fast his chair tipped over backward with a loud crash. The entire restaurant went silent. Heads turned. People were staring. A couple at the next table stopped eating, their forks hovering in midair. A waiter rushed over, looking terrified. Sir, is everything? He spun on him. My wife just told me none of my children are mine. None of them. The waiter's face went pale and he backed away slowly. Sit down, I hissed. You're making a scene. David looked at me like I was insane. He laughed, but it was a jagged, ugly sound. I'm making a scene? You just destroyed my entire life. You just told me my family is a lie, and you're worried about a scene? He was breathing hard, his chest heaving. I thought he might flip the table. I braced myself. But then, something shifted. The rage in his eyes cooled instantly. It was replaced by something much scarier. Focus. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. His hands were shaking, but he dialed a number from memory. He put the phone to his ear, staring at me the entire time. I need to see you, right now. She told me. She actually told me. My stomach dropped. Who are you calling? David hung up and slid the phone back into his pocket. He looked calm now, eerily calm. My lawyer, he said. I called him 3 days ago. I already knew Michelle. I felt the room spin. What? You think I didn't notice? You think I'm that stupid? I saw you throw away the DNA kits. I saw you intercept the mail. I saw the way you looked at me when I talked about ancestry. That's impossible, I stammered. I hid everything. You hid nothing. I did my own tests. 6 months ago. I swabbed their cheeks while you were at yoga. I've known for 6 months. I stared at him, unable to speak. The power dynamic in the room had just flipped upside down. I thought I was holding the gun.
but he was wearing a vest the whole time. He continued, I was waiting. I was waiting to see if you'd tell me. I kept hoping, praying, actually, that you'd come clean. I wanted to give you one last chance to be honest, to show me you had even a shred of conscience left. He looked down at the DNA results on the table. But you don't, do you? You were just going to keep lying, forever. You only told me today because you wanted to hurt me. You wanted to ruin the anniversary. You've been lying too, I yelled, desperate to regain some ground. You said you just found out. You let me buy this dress. You let me sit here. I lied for 6 months. You lied for 10 years. We are not the same. He reached into his wallet and threw a stack of cash on top of the table. It landed on top of the DNA results. I'm taking the kids to my parents' house tonight. They know everything. My mom is waiting by the phone. You can't take them, I said, standing up. They're my children. They're my children, he snapped, even if they're not my blood. I raised them while you lied to them. But you're nothing to me anymore. He leaned in close, his face inches from mine. Tomorrow, you'll get served with divorce papers. I'm suing you for fraud, Michelle. For every dollar I spent on tuition, medical bills, food, clothes, everything. And I'm telling them the truth. All of them. Emma, Aiden, Sophia, they deserve to know who their mother really is. David, please, I whispered. They're just babies. And you're a monster. He turned and walked out. I watched him weave through the tables, head high, not looking back once. I stood there in the silence he left behind. The diamond necklace felt heavy around my neck. The empty envelope sat on the table next to the cash. The waiter was still watching me from the corner. I had planned this night perfectly. I had rehearsed every line. I thought I was the writer of this story. But as I stood there alone in a crowded restaurant, I realized I hadn't written the tragedy for him. I had written one for myself.
I drove home that night to a house that felt like a mausoleum. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was heavy. It pressed against my eardrums. I walked into the twins' room. Their beds were unmade. A half-finished Lego tower sat on the rug. I curled up in Emma's bed, surrounded by her squishmallows, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo, and I finally broke. I sobbed until my chest ached, not because I was a victim, but because I knew I was the architect of my own hell. The next morning, the hangover of reality set in. At 8 a.m. sharp, a process server knocked on the door. He didn't smile. He just handed me a thick stack of paperwork and said, "You've been served." I sat at the kitchen table and read it. David wasn't just divorcing me. He was going for blood. He was suing me for paternity fraud. He had itemized every single expense he had incurred over 10 years. Private school tuition, orthodontics, summer camps, medical bills, even the groceries. The total came to $347,000. He was suing me for the cost of raising children he loved just to prove a point, that my lie had a price tag. But the money was nothing compared to the phone call I got that evening. It was from David's mother. She told me David had sat the kids down with a family therapist that afternoon. She told me Emma looked at David and asked, "So you're not our real dad?" And David, the man I tried to break, told her, "I'm your real dad in every way that matters, but biologically, no. Your mom lied to all of us." Emma is 9. She's smart. She understood. And she refused to speak to me. For 3 weeks, I called her every night. She never picked up. Then the vultures started circling. Word got out, small towns talk, and David's mother made sure everyone knew the story. I became the local pariah. People I'd known for years crossed the street when they saw me coming. My own mother called me, weeping, asking how I could do this to that good man. And then Ryan showed up.
He came to my door a week later, looking smug. He'd heard the news. He said, "So they are mine." I told him to leave. I told him he didn't get to be a father now just because the secret was out. But Ryan laughed. He said, "I left because you told me they weren't mine. You robbed me of 10 years too." He filed for paternity tests and partial custody the next day. So now my poor children had 3 parents: the father who raised them and was heartbroken, the biological father who was a stranger to them, and the mother they couldn't trust. I had created a 3-ring circus of trauma. The custody battle was brief and brutal. I thought the court would side with me. I'm the mother, right? But the judge looked at the evidence. He looked at the fraud. He looked at the psychological bond the kids had with David. He ruled that it was in the best interest of the children to remain primarily with David. He called David the psychological parent. I got supervised visitation every other weekend, and I was ordered to pay child support to David, $2,500 a month plus a $50,000 settlement for the fraud. That was 6 months ago. Today, I live in a studio apartment on the wrong side of town. I work 2 jobs to pay the legal fees and the support. My life is small. It's quiet. David kept the house. He kept the friends. He kept the life I built. I hear he's dating again. I hear he's happy. And honestly, he deserves it. He told me once, during one of our handoffs, "I would have stayed, Michelle. If you had told me from the beginning, I would have cried and I would have been angry, but I would have chosen to be their father anyway. But you took that choice from me. That's what I can't forgive." That sentence haunts me every single day. I thought I was protecting him. I thought I was saving our family. But really, I was just saving myself from an uncomfortable conversation. My relationship with the kids is complicated. The twins are confused by Ryan. They call him Ryan, not Dad. They still call David Dad. But Emma is my punishment. She barely looks at me during visits. She treats me like a distant aunt. She told me, "You're the reason Dad cries at night." That shattered me. But last week, I got a letter. It was in Emma's handwriting. I opened it with shaking hands. It said, "Mom, I'm still angry at you. But Dad says you made a mistake, and people who make mistakes can still be good people. He says I should give you a chance. So I'm trying. But you have to promise, no more lies, ever." I broke down right there in my kitchen. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a door left open, a tiny crack of light. If there is a lesson in this wreckage, it's this. If you are living with a lie, tell the truth, now, today, this minute. The longer you wait, the worse it gets. I thought I was sparing David pain. Instead, I multiplied it by 10 years. I thought secrets protected people. They don't. They just rot everything they touch. Your children will remember that you lied more than they'll remember what you lied about. The truth destroys, yes, but lies destroy more, and they destroy slowly, completely, and without mercy. I had 10 years to do the right thing. I chose the easy thing instead, and now I have the rest of my life to live with that choice. Don't be me.